Every day, we live in a world where fairy tales and nightmares are strangely intertwined. We walk familiar paths, talk to friendly neighbors, and believe that everything is under control. But what if a terrifying story begins with the most mundane act, a coincidence so ironic that no one could have imagined it? This is the question that we, the people behind the channel, Forgotten Ties, want to ask you. This is the story of a mother who found her missing daughter, not in a dark alley or an abandoned house, but among the dusty shelves of a community library. Picture this. It's a typical Tuesday afternoon in a small American town. Nothing out of the ordinary. The sun is setting, long shadows from the trees stretch across the sidewalk, and a woman named Eliza is standing in front of a sea of books. Eliza isn't a librarian, but she spends almost every afternoon here. Since her daughter, Lily, disappeared 3 years ago, the library has become her sanctuary, a quiet and orderly world where the pain seems a little more bearable. Eliza is a woman with neatly tied chestnut hair and sad, gray-blue eyes. Her life has been split into 2 parts, before and after Lily disappeared. Lily was no ordinary child. At 17, she was a talented artist with a sensitive soul and a vibrant, lively spirit. The police concluded she was a runaway. "She's a teenager, Mrs. Eliza. They do foolish things like that," they told her. Those words were like salt in an open wound for Eliza and her husband, Robert. They knew their daughter better than anyone. Lily might have been rebellious, she might have been a dreamer, but she would never have left without a word. She would never have left them to live in such agony and confusion. So, they searched. Day after day, they taped up faded posters on telephone poles, checked every anonymous call, every baseless rumor, and each time they were met with disappointment. Then one day, a strange thing happened. A friend of Eliza's, who was moving to another city, asked her to return an old book to the library. It was a classic Ernest Hemingway novel, forgotten in a moving truck. Eliza agreed to help. As she was placing the book on the librarian's desk, something small, worn and blue slipped out from between the pages. It was a small, tattered notebook with a pink, inkless ballpoint pen clipped to the cover. Eliza picked it up. She didn't know why, but a strange feeling crept over her. It was a feeling that was both familiar and terrifying. It wasn't the book that was being returned. Someone had accidentally placed it there, or deliberately hidden it. When Eliza opened the notebook, her heart stopped. The inside cover had a pencil drawing, a simple rose, just like the ones Lily used to draw. And in the bottom corner, a small, handwritten signature, so familiar she could recognize it in the dark. "This is Lily's diary." Eliza was stunned. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages. Could this be real? After 3 years, had the universe finally opened a small door, revealing a glimmer of hope? Or was this just a cruel joke, a painful coincidence? The first few pages of the diary were unremarkable. The scrawled lines of a teenager about boring classes, favorite songs, and boys Lily had a crush on. Eliza cried as she read these lines, the pain overwhelming as she relived her daughter's ordinary moments. But then, as she turned to the middle of the diary, Lily's tone began to change. The writing became rushed, the sentences shorter and filled with fear. Lily had started writing about someone. She didn't mention a name. Only he or him. "He said he could help me make my dreams come true," one line read, and then later, "He knows everything about me." These lines seemed harmless, but the way Lily wrote them gave the reader a chilling feeling. Then Eliza came across something even more disturbing. Interspersed between the lines were strange symbols, scribbled drawings that looked like tiny butterflies and bizarre flowers. At first, Eliza thought they were just decorative drawings, but the more she looked, the more she felt they were a form of code, a secret language that only 2 people knew. Lily had always been a creative person and loved riddles and games. Could this be a way for her to communicate? A hidden cry for help that she knew would one day be found? And then she read a line that made her tremble. "He said no one should know. He said he would make me disappear." This line was written on a final page, and after that, there was nothing. The diary ended abruptly. The diary could only tell the story up to this point. 3 years ago, Lily didn't run away. Something happened to her. And this diary, this anonymous, lost book, accidentally found in a library, was the only evidence. But who was he? What did he want from her? And most importantly, was this diary deliberately left here as a sign? Eliza looked at the tattered notebook in her hand, realizing a heartbreaking truth. Her search for her daughter was not over. It had just begun. And the truth, a horrifying truth, was waiting for her on the next pages. After reading the final lines of the diary, Eliza's world collapsed for the second time. The first was when she got the phone call from the police. This time was when she learned that her daughter's disappearance was not her choice, but a tragedy. All the doubts that she and Robert had carried for 3 years were suddenly confirmed. Lily had not run away. She had been abducted. Or worse. The thought was like a sharp knife twisting in a mother's heart. Eliza couldn't continue reading the diary alone. It was too heavy. Back home, she handed the diary to Robert. Although he was always a man of few words, the pain in his eyes as he read his daughter's lines said it all. He looked at Eliza, and for the first time in 3 years, they truly shared the same pain, the same determination. Their lives had been interrupted, but now they had a thread, a clue to hold on to. But how could they decipher it? What was the code? Eliza remembered Lily's strange drawings, butterflies, flowers, small circles. Once, Robert had given Lily an old riddle book. Could that be a clue? They turned Lily's room upside down, the room they had left untouched for 3 years. Everything was the same, her paintings on the walls, her guitar in the corner, and a stack of old books piled on her desk. And then, they found it, the riddle book. Inside, a page was folded over, and there was a translation of an ancient code, a substitution cipher called the butterfly code. With the help of the book, Robert and Eliza began to decipher the diary. What they discovered was not just shocking, but terrifying. The seemingly harmless lines Eliza had read initially were not a teenager's thoughts. They were encrypted notes about conversations, about secret meetings. Lily had met an older man, one who had promised to help her succeed in her art career. He had talked about nurturing talent and connecting her with influential people. The diary documented those meetings, but in a strange way. For example, a line might read, "Today a rose bloomed," but when deciphered, it meant, "Today, he bought me a new phone." As they deciphered these lines, a horrifying picture emerged. The man had been stalking Lily for months, studying her interests and preying on her dreams to lure her in. He wasn't a stranger. The diary said he was a respected member of the community, someone Lily had met at an art exhibition, someone they might have known. At this point, every deciphered line was a blow. "He told me I had to keep it a secret. He said if my parents knew, they wouldn't understand. He said he would give me a big opportunity, but I had to do what he said." The last encrypted lines were a desperate plea. Lily had realized the danger she was in. "He's not a good person," a line read. "He says he loves me, but it's not love. It's control. I told him I would tell everyone. I told him I would tell my parents." And that was it. That was why Lily had disappeared. She had been silenced. What was most horrifying was that the diary seemed to have been left behind intentionally. Who put it in that book? Was it the man himself, trying to send a message? Or was there a third person? Eliza's feeling had changed from a mother searching for her daughter to a person hunting a perpetrator. She and Robert knew they couldn't go to the police. The code would be dismissed as a teenager's scribblings, not as evidence. They had to find this man's identity themselves. The diary also mentioned specific locations: a coffee shop called Bean and Brew, a park near the library, and an art gallery downtown. These were the places where Lily and the man had met. It seemed they had had secret dates. Eliza decided to start there. She wanted to go to each location, look for any lingering traces, whispered words, any clue that could help her piece the story together. The search was no longer about finding her daughter, it was about finding justice. But they didn't know that the perpetrator was watching them, lurking in the shadows, waiting to erase the remaining traces. And in this race, their lives were at risk. Eliza and Robert's search led them to the heart of a complex web of lies and deceit, hidden beneath the facade of a normal town. Every time they deciphered a new passage in Lily's diary, another terrifying piece was added to the puzzle. They learned that the man had used his reputation in the art community to access young girls like Lily. He posed as an art patron, a philanthropist, a mentor. He organized contests, exhibitions, and he had targeted Lily. Eliza began visiting the art galleries Lily had mentioned. She pretended to be an art lover, a mother looking for classes for her daughter. There, she spoke to young artists. They all mentioned the same name, a respectable-looking man named Lawrence Sterling. He was an influential figure in the local art scene, a man who organized exhibitions and was well regarded by everyone. Eliza had heard the name a few times around town. He was a middle-aged, successful man who seemed to have nothing to hide. Someone who seemed incapable of such a crime. As Eliza and Robert began to research Lawrence Sterling, they discovered an even more horrifying truth. He wasn't just a respectable man. He had once been on the local library board. He had access to the books. He had been there often. So was the diary left there intentionally, or was it just a coincidence? In one deciphered line, Lily had written, "He gave me an old camera to document beautiful moments." This line was carefully encrypted, as if Lily knew that someone might find the diary and know how to read it. In the following lines, Lily described the places she had been with Lawrence to take photos. One of them was an abandoned house on the outskirts of town, where Lily had written that the light was beautiful there. One afternoon, Eliza and Robert decided to go there. They found an old, dilapidated, abandoned house with rotting wooden planks. Inside, they found a room where the light shone through a broken window, just as Lily had described. And then, they saw it, a few charcoal sketches on the wall, seemingly the sketches of a teenage girl, a portrait of Lily herself. A chill ran down Eliza's spine. Her daughter had been here. And perhaps, this was where everything came to an end. And then they discovered something else. In a hidden corner of the room, there was a loose floorboard. Beneath it, they found a small, rusted metal box. Inside, they found a camera memory card. Lily had had a spare memory card, and she had hidden it here, just in case something happened. When they got home, they immediately plugged the memory card into the computer. The memory card contained hundreds of photos. The first photos were artistic shots of landscapes of the city. Then, the photos started to show Lawrence Sterling. He was standing close to Lily, staring into the camera, smiling. His smile seemed kind and gentle, but his eyes were empty and cold. And then, a series of photos taken in a rush, seemingly during a struggle. Finally, there was one last photo. It was a blurry selfie of Lily, with swollen eyes and tears streaming down her cheeks. The caption for the photo read, "He won't let me go. He said he would ruin my family." Eliza and Robert's tears flowed as they looked at these photos. Their search was not in vain. They had proof, solid evidence. But the most horrifying thing was yet to come. And then a call came. A call from an unknown number. A low, slow voice echoed from the other end. "I know you found it. The diary. I know you're watching me. But I have something you want, Mrs. Eliza. I have your answers. There's only one place you can find me." The voice paused. "The library. Your life and your husband's life, they depend on it." The call ended. Eliza and Robert looked at each other. They could feel the fear. But they had already lost their daughter once. They wouldn't let that happen again. The diary, the photos, and now the threat. It all pointed to one place. Where it all began. The library. They would face him. They would find the truth. And they would never stop. Eliza and Robert drove to the library in the dark of night, their hearts heavy. Both knew they might be walking into a trap. But they also knew this was their only chance to get the truth. That night, the library was eerily quiet. The door was still open, as if Lawrence had been waiting for them. As they stepped inside, darkness enveloped them, with only the dim lights illuminating the towering bookshelves. Lawrence Sterling stood in the middle of an aisle, where fairy tales and crime novels were placed side by side. He wasn't staring at them. He just stood there, chillingly calm, as if he had been expecting this. "I knew you would come, Mrs. Eliza," he said in a soft but menacing tone. "Lily liked you a lot. She said you wouldn't give up. Eliza felt a shiver run down her spine. Lawrence Sterling didn't underestimate them. He had studied them, just as he had studied Lily. What did you do to my daughter? Robert growled. What did you do to her? Lawrence didn't answer. Instead, he walked over to a nearby table. On it was a camera, the same kind as Lily's. Lily had a special talent, he said. I could have helped her succeed. But she was so stubborn. She wouldn't listen. She wouldn't do what I told her. Eliza looked into his eyes. They were emotionless. What did you do? She asked again, her voice trembling. Tell me. She told me she would tell everyone. She told me she would go to the police, Lawrence said, still in that calm tone. And she sent me a video, saying that if I didn't let her go, she would post it online. He pulled out a phone. He pressed a button. A video appeared on the screen. It was a video recorded with Lily's phone. In it, she was in an empty room, and she said in a trembling voice, if you're watching this video, then Lawrence Sterling has done something to me. He promised to help me, but he just wanted to control me. Then the video panned, and for a second, Lawrence Sterling appeared, standing at the door, with a smirk. I told her I would ruin her family, but she still wouldn't listen, Lawrence said, turning off the phone. So, I had to act. He smiled again, a chilling smile. I took her away. I told her I would take her to a place where no one could find her. I told her she would disappear. And she knew it. She knew she would never come back. Robert was stunned. So Lily found a way to escape on her own. She untied herself and jumped out of my car, Lawrence said, his eyes wide with a crazed look. She died instantly. She's gone. Eliza heard those words and felt her world completely collapse. Her daughter was dead. Not a runaway. Not missing. She had died trying to escape a monster. You hid her diary, Eliza said, her voice filled with pain. Why? I found it when I came back. I was looking for her, but I couldn't. She was dead. I took her diary as a memento, and I hid it in an old book. I thought no one would find it. I didn't expect you to. Suddenly, from somewhere, police cars with flashing lights surrounded the library. A young woman with short blonde hair got out of a car and walked straight towards them. It was a police officer named Sarah Evans, someone Eliza had talked to many times. Eliza had sent an anonymous text to her, saying they were going to the library to meet Lawrence. Mr. Sterling, you are under arrest for kidnapping, murder, and other charges, Evans said, her voice firm. Lawrence looked at them with an angry expression. I didn't do anything, he yelled. She jumped out herself. Eliza and Robert stood there, watching Lawrence being handcuffed and led away. Robert held Eliza's hand tightly. Their pain was still there, but they had gotten justice. Lily's case, finally brought to light. But this story isn't just about revenge. It's a reminder. The relationships that seem perfect, the respectable people, those who seem to have no flaws, are sometimes the most dangerous. Lily's diary was not just a diary. It was a cry for help. A warning from the past that secret relationships can destroy your life. So, never let any relationship be hidden. Always talk to the people you love. Always trust your instincts. Sometimes, the darkest secrets are hidden under the most perfect facade. And this is the end of the story, but similar stories are always happening. If you found this story meaningful, please click the like button below. Please subscribe to the Forgotten Ties channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. We will be back with stories about forgotten ties, about secrets buried in the darkness. Thank you very much.